account manager in Redis Labs. I'm responsible also for India. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about who is Redis Labs and what is the Redis Enterprise version that we provide, what are the main benefits of the Redis Enterprise compared to the Redis open source. Feel free to stop me, to ask questions during the presentation. I'm here to help. So, a little bit about Redis. I'm sure that within the crowd we have people that have already been using Redis, and people who are looking to use Redis or wants to understand what Redis is. So first of all, for the guys who are using Redis, thank you, and I'm sure you made an amazing decision. For the guys who are looking at Redis, you will understand in a minute why those guys who chose Redis chose Redis. One thing about Redis, a lot of people call Redis key value. We call it data structure because Redis is much more rich and much more complex than just simple key value. There's a lot of customers who are using Redis as their main persistent database in a very complex scenarios. We'll talk about some of the use cases, but you'll see that Redis, and throughout the day, that Redis can do much more than just simple caching, key value scenarios. Redis is growing dramatically in the market today compared to any other solution in the NoSQL space. So who is Redis Labs? Redis Labs are two things. First of all, we are the open source home. Redis was created 10 years ago by an Italian guy called Salvatore, who joined Redis Labs 3 years ago. He's heading the open source team. So we are responsible for the open source. We are the official sponsor. We are responsible for the roadmap, for the vision, like we did with the modules, for example. But we also provide what we call Redis Enterprise. Redis Enterprise is the same thing as what Red Hat did to Linux. We encapsulate the open source to provide additional functionalities to make Redis much more robust, much more enterprise ready, especially for customers who are moving to production and needs additional functionalities like reliability and performance and scaling, etc. And some unique features that we're going to talk about today that we added into the product. Plus we provide support and consultancy to our partners, and the main one of them here in India is Heshedi, that we work very, very closely with. When I first joined sales, the first thing that they taught me is that people buy from people. And I think it's the same thing in technology. When you choose a technology, you have to make sure that you feel comfortable with this technology when you're moving forward, investing time in development, investing time in adopting this technology. And this is the latest survey that was done this year regarding what is the most loved database, and you can see that Redis is #1. And that is something that is unique to Redis because people who uses Redis really, really love the solution. And the reason for that, it's simple, it delivers what it says, and it's a very important input just to demonstrate to you that Redis is growing not because it's the most amazing technology. There are other technologies, some databases support these features, some databases support these features, but by the end of the day, people love and to work with Redis. And it's very, very important. Some other popularity rankings, just for those guys who are interested in Redis and still haven't joined the community. It is the #1 database technology on AWS, and also on Azure now. So when you look at AWS, Azure, and all the other public cloud, what is the main deployed database? Redis. It's the #1 lab database, #1 used by Node.js, #1 top paying technologies, #1 on Docker, 280 million Redis Docker downloads compared to 80 million on MySQL and other technologies like Cassandra. By far a huge gap. #1 user satisfaction, #1 growth among top 3 NoSQL databases. When I'm saying top 3, I'm talking about Cassandra, MongoDB, Redis. Redis is growing dramatically by far than anybody else. And #1 database in skill demand in the US. So when companies now are looking for new architects, Redis is #1 in skill demand, just to show again the adaptation of Redis within the market. Where do we see Redis? We see it in a range of solutions, but mainly we see it today in IoT, metering, e-commerce, personalization, fraud, anything to do with real time. In the big data space, a lot of companies join the big data to handle huge amount of data. Today the data is coming from different resources. The question, what do I do with this data? How do I make decision in real time? And Redis was built for this kind of scenarios, and more companies are beginning to move a lot of their data to Redis in order to allow them to make fast decisions in a very competitive market. So we see it in high-speed transactions. I know that caching is the most popular use case for Redis, but you'll be surprised. We see it in high-speed transactions, in analytics, messaging, machine learning. It's a new emerging scenario. Fast data ingestion in IoT. How can I ingest millions of operations per second? Redis is built for this kind of scenario. Time series, jobs and queues, geo, and of course, search with the new Redis text-based search model. Another thing is that Redis can support both transactional and analytical use cases. For example, transactional, financial transactions, user profile management, pricing management. You'll be surprised, but one of the most growing vertical for us is banks. Now, working with financial organizations and banks, those are the most conservative organizations that can be. The adoption of Redis within those banks is the most growing vertical for us. More and more banks are switching directly to Redis because of those use cases and some requirements they have about performance and time to market. Time to market is very important. We'll talk about it, and it's to do with simplicity. But analytics, you see counting, leaderboards, page ranking, recommendations. So traveling companies, gaming companies, most of them are using Redis as their main front-end database and sometimes as their main persistent database. The most important thing about Redis is the community. The community of Redis is by far bigger than any other community you can find today. And it means that you are not alone. Even if Redis Labs is not here tomorrow, the community is still there. It's I think one of the main databases that the contributors are not just us. There's a huge list of contributors, including the 3 who sits here. Everything exists on GitHubs. You have a huge amount of projects. It supports over 52 different languages, 162 clients. That means that you have a backup of a huge community behind you when you choose this technology. So a little bit about Redis Labs. The company was founded in 2011. Our headquarters is in the US. We have over 250 employees so far. When I joined the company 2 years ago, we were 47. We started. Now we are over 250 and we're growing. And it's not because, it's because of the market. The market is growing dramatically. When it comes to our offering, we have 2 kinds of offering. Based on the same technology, and we'll talk about the Redis Enterprise technology in a minute, and again, what is the main value. But we have what we call Redis Cloud, and we have Redis On-Prem. Redis Cloud is a database as a service. We provide full Redis service on cloud. We have it on Azure, we have it on AWS, we have it on GCE, we have it on IBM, we support it on Pivotal, on Heroku, etc. You can either have it as a managed service, as a shared environment, or you can have what we call Redis Cloud Private. Redis Cloud Private means that we will create a private cloud service on your VPC on AWS, on your private network on the cloud. So if you're looking for a managed service, Redis managed service with the enterprise features, we support it today. Or we have what we call the on-prem Redis Pack. Redis Pack is a fully downloadable version. You can download yourself, you manage it yourself, you can install it either on your data centers or on any cloud today, but you will manage it and you will install it, etc. We have over 7,500 paying enterprise customers worldwide. We are managing over 250 live databases in productions. I'll give you a list of some of our customers in a minute, but we have huge experience in production. We have huge experience with deploying Redis in a complex scenario. So everything exists in-house. This is a short list of some of the customers who've been using our technology. By the way, a lot of them have been using Redis open source before and decided to upgrade to the enterprise. I think that the biggest one is Twitter. But Twitter is the biggest Redis open source. By far, they're running terabytes of Redis data in their premises. By the way, the reason they decided to move to us because they bought a company called Periscope. I don't know if you're familiar with this solution. And they reached a point where the performance and the scaling and the high availability, they can't manage it in-house. They need something more robust. Instead of twitching, so they decided to move to us. So Periscope, the entire Periscope database is running on our Redis Enterprise. We have Microsoft MSN, the entire MSN website, the entire caching of MSN is running on our technology. It's interesting because MSN have Azure, and Azure have Azure Redis. So they got it for free. They decided to go with our enterprise solution because they need the other features that the Redis open source couldn't provide. But we work there, we have Cisco, you can see a lot of traveling companies, Expedia, TripAdvisor, you can see Visa, American Express, Credit Agricole, Staples, Groupon. A very, very short list of some of the companies who are using Redis. By the way, when you go in India and you buy something and suddenly you realize that you have to pay 28% more tax, it's because of us, because we calculate it. So the entire GST, a new calculation platform, is running with Redis Labs as the caching layer, but other scenarios. This was done together with Infosys. So the entire GST is based on the Redis Labs Enterprise platform. We have Dell India, we have ACL Mobile with us today, we have Freshworks, Sapient, Life, Wipro, Cognizant, Infosys, and we have more and more customers. This is a short list of some of the customers that we already have in India. India is one of the most growing territories for us, and this is the reason also we work together with Hashedin to leverage that and to grow the territory more and more. This is the latest Forrester report, recognizing us as a leader in our term. And this is the latest Gartner report. I know some of you are also looking at those reports. You can see that comparison to 2016, the top quadrant is only the traditional SQL like IBM, Microsoft, Oracle. And then there's another quadrant with MongoDB, Cassandra, and us. We are the only three in the NoSQL space that in this quadrant. The highest score that we received from Gartner compared to all the other technologies are two things. First of all is customer satisfaction. Customers like to work with us because we provide them, with a consultancy and support and help. Second thing is time to market. And that's very, very important regarding what I talked about Redis. A lot of companies today are not just looking at technologies, are looking to adjust, are looking to rebuild themselves, looking to introduce new technologies. And the most important thing for them is to time to market. How can I compete in the market when it's changing dramatically day by day? And with Redis, especially with Redis, but with Redis Labs, the time to market to introduce new applications is almost less than a half than any other technology. Because of the way Redis is. Redis compared to any other technology, is much more simple to adapt and much more simple to use. So time to market, we got the highest score compared to all the other databases. So what do? We actually invested a lot of time and many years in order to build an enterprise-grade Redis database, and I mentioned again, that encapsulate the open source, so there is no lock-in. It's always on top of the latest open source. You can always go back to the open source. There's no changes required from the database, nothing, etc. So you just add an additional feature. To create a new database or advanced database that, first of all, a multi-model, as we discussed, that can support new scenarios. Things like text-based search, graph, JSON, machine learning, and more and more. So we actually can expand the scenarios that you can support with Redis. Second thing, ACID compliant. I know that a lot of customers are looking into making sure that that the product is ACID compliant, especially in a financial environment. And another thing that a unique feature that we introduced this year is what we call active geographic distributed. I know that a lot of customers have been asking for what we call a master-master solution. In the previous version, you could support asynchronous between different geolocations, meaning that you can have one master in one location and a slave, but it has to be asynchronous. Now we introduce an active-active. The interesting thing about it is we are using a new technology called CRDT. It's a conflict-free replication data type. It means that you can have master-master, active-active, you can read and write in each one of the location, but still maintain a local latency. Because one of the things regarding active-active that you have to pay, the price that you have to pay is latency. With our solution, because this is Redis, the latency is still going to be local latency. So you're going to maintain latency and still going to have active-active. And by the way, everything that we do, if you go to redis.io, that's the website of the Redis open source, Salvatore wrote the manifest, and one of the main things is about performance. Everything we do is to maintain performance. We don't add features or do new things by hurting the main advantages of Redis. So we have to maintain those key differentiation of Redis. So everything we do have to maintain performance, simplicity, etc. So what are the main benefits of the Redis Enterprise compared to the Redis open source? First of all is our scaling mechanism. Redis is a single-threaded technology, meaning that one Redis instance has a dedicated processing power. What happens when you want to scale? What happens when you want to have more processing powers? You want to increase the data, or you want to increase the performance? Because it has a limitation of how many operations can one process handle. So up until a few months, up until our solution, the way to do it was to do it with the application. You have to manage multiple instances of the application, decide which key goes to which solution. Then the open source introduced what we call a clustering, the open source clustering. Our solution is a different solution that's been around for the last 7 years already. What we do, we developed a zero latency proxy that sits in front of the database and do all of those things transparent to the application. So the application point of view, the application talks only to the proxy, and then the proxy distributes the load between different instances automatically. So the application doesn't need to be aware whether it's one instance, 2 instances, or 3 instances. This is the reason we have a lot of customers using the enterprise to run 5 million operations per second. We have one customer, it's called Alcatel Nokia. They're running the entire billing CDRs for AT&T in the US. The benchmark was 5 million operations per second. And we managed to do it because of this proxy mechanism. So we have this ability to scale automatically if you need to increase your data or if you increase the performance. And another thing that is important about our clustering is that you can do it automatically without taking down the application, because if you're looking at Redis open source mechanism, sometimes you have to, if you want to scale to add more nodes or to add more what we call shards, you have to take down the application, redistribute the data, and then bring it up again. In our case, there's no downtime, no data loss, nothing. Everything is automatic, on the fly, so you can scale as much as you want. Second thing, as I mentioned, ACID compliancy, so multi-command transactions. We can do tunable consistency. We support consistency. You can tune it to the level of consistency you want, meaning consistency all the way to the DR, all the way to the slave, all the way to the master. You can choose the level of consistency that you want. And of course, cluster support for models. We talked about models. Models is part of the open source, but for example, if you're using Redis Search, but you want to use Redis Search and to scale it dramatically, you probably need the enterprise version to scale the model as well. That's part of the scaling mechanism that we've got. The second thing is our high availability and durability mechanism. Our high availability mechanism is different than the open source, what we call Sentinel project. It's been around again for 7 years. Some of it's using the proxy mechanisms. In our solution, you don't need one master, 2 slaves. You need one master, 1 slave. You still need a 3-node configuration in order for a network split and quorum, but you have only 2, 1 master and 1 slave. It's automatic failover, no data loss. A lot of customers who move, for example, from AWS Elastic Cache and other services to us is because they experience data loss during a failover. We guarantee no data loss. So this is part of the mechanism that we provide, so it's different. We also support persistence to disk. We support DR. We support all the mechanisms that allows you to have liable and reliable and continuous service 9897. And also our recovery time it can be a few seconds compared to open source that sometimes can take longer and sometimes customers complain about it. So if recovery time, for example, is very, very important, the enterprise version solves it and lower the recovery time to a few seconds. We also invest a lot in making Redis more stable, more predictable, and even to have higher performance with our clustering mechanisms and other tools that we added. And of course, our active geo distribution that we just released in the latest version that allows you to have also a master geographical distribution. Okay. The third thing is what we call a lower cost of ownership, meaning that we're making the solution much more optimized, especially in large-scale deployment. Another feature that we introduced last year, it's called Redis on Flash, and I'll try to explain what. See if I have a slide about. Okay, what is Redis on Flash? Redis on Flash is a solution that allows you to use SSD as a memory extension to RAM. So let's assume that you're running 2 terabytes of data over Redis, and there's a lot of customers who are running terabytes of data over Redis. But you know, you want to do it on RAM, you want to do it on SSD, it's more cost effective. The instances on AWS are cheaper than the instances that are using RAM. So what we did, we're using SSD as an extension, meaning, I'll give you an example. We're keeping the keys on the RAM and the values on the SSD. But we also, we have what we call a hit ratio. So the keys on the RAM, the values on the SSD, but we're still going to keep some of the values, depends on the ratio you want, on the RAM. So the hot keys will be on RAM. And you can play with it. You can say, I want 10% of it, I want 20% of it, 30% of it. You can play with the amount or the percentage of the hot keys that you want to maintain on RAM. Of course, the price is performance, but still, even with 10% on RAM and 90% on SSD, the performance is something like 4 or 5 milliseconds. So you can still get amazing performance over SSD. It doesn't mean that the solution is a disk-based solution like MongoDB, etc. No, but it allows you to use SSD to save on cost and still get very high throughput and very high performance. And you can actually play with the percentage in real time, and you can see the behavior, the effect on latency while you're doing that. And by the way, we have a lot of customers now are in a stage of migrating or checking SSD because of their size of data set on Redis. And again, lower fewer resources, like I mentioned, for example, high availability. You don't need anymore. You don't need 3 copies, 1 master, 2 slaves. You need only 2, and a lot of other optimization that we're doing to save on the amount of infrastructure that you need in order to maintain your Redis environment. And of course, the most important thing, we also provide 24/7 support. We have support teams around the world. We have partners like Hashedin that also help us to deliver consultancy and support if needed and PS if needed to our customers, because we treat our customers as partners. It's not just about, we don't sell technology. We sell the ability to help you deliver to be successful. So it's very important for us to work with you to understand the use case, the scenario, and make sure that you are successful in implementing it. And the most important thing is to bring you to be part of the community. The community is very important to us, so our customers are also part of the community, ideas to be part of the roadmap, the vision, where it's going, etc. One of the things that we're doing, for example, a lot in the US and in Europe, and that's something that we will try to do it here with Hashedin, is to what we call Redis Day, to build a community, strong community in India. So it will be all about Redis. We need to bring Salvatore and do an event that is focused on where Redis is going and get your feedbacks and etc. from the users community. The next thing I want to do is, how much time we forgot?
We've got 10 minutes.
Excellent. I want to talk about, for example, 2 examples where Redis, by the way, any questions regarding Redis Enterprise so far? Yes.
I have a question. On slide number 7, you talked about transactional analytics for the financial institutions that Redis is being used there. And on slide number 17, you talked about that Redis is supporting all the asset properties.
Is one, sorry?
Asset properties.
Yes.
On slide number 17, you talked about it. So this means that a lot of financial institutions are replacing OLTP with Redis.
Replacing who, sorry?
OLTP means online transaction processing systems.
Like for example?
Like Oracle database.
You mean like SQL, Oracle, things like that?
Absolutely.
They're doing it. We're getting more and more companies that are replacing old one, but I'm coming, my previous company was an IMDG company. So I'm coming from that mission critical banks application. You have to do it slowly. You know, that's what we call a migration path. What we see more and more is that they start with Redis as a front end for more digital applications like web applications, caching, etc. And now we begin to see them looking into replacing more and more. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to replace it in one day, but we see more and more banks that are working with us right now to take some of the scenarios where they have bottlenecks in performance, when they have bottlenecks, because one of the issues that banks have with the old database is not just about performance. And I'll give you an example. The reason, for example, MasterCard and Visa are working with us is because of Google Pay and Apple Pay. Suddenly, your mobile phone became a credit card. So the amount of transactions that you have to handle in a day grew up by 20%. And the bank sees this as well because it's becoming a digital world. People can move money from the mobile phone. So the performance, they have to handle much more performance. So what we were doing, working with them, is to understand where are the bottlenecks and start using Redis as a complementary to fix those databases, but slowly replace the traditional databases. To replace the traditional databases in one day and run everything on Redis, it's not going to happen. It's a long process, but we see more and more Redis being used to replace existing scenarios that are the bottleneck within the bank. But the banks are talking about replacing the traditional one with NoSQL. Some are using MongoDB with us, some are using us, so it's a process. In a where? Sorry?
In the financial institutions, like banks.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
One of the things that we see a lot with banks and insurance company is the transition to the digital world. For example, transition to the digital world, meaning to allow customers, for example, to manage their bank account from a mobile phone. Now, this requires a lot of applications that requires performance, but also time to market. So, for example, this is an area where all the banks are interested is to start using Redis as a front end for all of those applications that requires performance, that requires data ingestion, but also requires a lot of simplicity and time to market. So we can adjust the application because all the banks are now introducing new pay from your mobile phone, send money, and they're fighting on the customers now, on the digital customer. This is the first thing where, for example, Redis can be positioned as a caching de facto solution to solve those problems. The second thing is to look into the traditional applications and understand where do you have bottlenecks in performance, and to put again a Redis as a mediator at this stage to solve the performance issues. And then later on, let's talk about your mission critical application and how you can move into Redis, but I will do it in steps. First of all, let's solve your problem. That makes sense?
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Yes.
Slide number 6, you talked about geospatial analytics, right? So in that area, what Redis is doing, it is mainly tracking all the GPS device information on the Redis systems and creating an index out of it, or there is some other way Redis is involved in?
Good question. A little bit technical for me.
Yeah.
You talked about GPS location.
Yeah, so GeoSearch can, you're familiar with GeoSearch, right? I mean, I don't know who asked the question, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so you can store lat-long coordinates and you can do search on that basis, on a radius-based search. So there is various kind of searches available in Redis. But I felt that you were familiar with that, so I didn't understand the follow-up question.
Okay. The important question here is that
Redis being used as an ingestion from all these devices, or it is used for the analytics purpose?
So both. So if you're, let's say that you're an Uber and you want to track the real-time location for where your vehicle is, you would of course use Redis because the updates are far more than the reads, right? And anytime when the writes are an order of magnitude more than the reads, Redis is a very natural fit because you're ingesting data very fast. So that's one aspect of it. On the analytics side, you can use Redis basically against geographical or real-time analytics in the sense how many trips were being made, how many cancellations in this geographic area, how many people.
The analytics portion is definitely a good fit, but
right.
From the ingestion perspective, is it a good fit? Has this been used anywhere?
Ingestion, yeah. Redis is used in a lot of places to ingest data, right? I think we spoke about Kafka versus Redis, right? So there are places where you're using Kafka to ingest data, but there are also significant amount of places where you're using Redis as an ingestion mechanism, especially when, for example, if you're looking at the geographic use case, you miss one data point, it's not as important, right? So you don't need the reliability, durability of a Kafka, but you really need to ingest the data very quickly.
I'll give you an example.
So that's the. Oh, you got the mic.
Are you familiar with a company called Mobileye?
Yeah.
Mobileye being bought by Intel, and what Mobileye are doing is the smart car. They give you a hazard, when you drive. It's like a camera that sits near the driver, and if a car is too close, it gives you a warning, and a lot of car companies are using. One thing you don't know is that Mobileye, when you drive the Mobileye, it takes pictures 24/7 of the road. So it's even more accurate than Waze, because it knows exactly what's happening on the road in real time. If somebody's running on the road, all this information is being ingested by Redis. So Redis is in use there. And there's a lot of other car manufacturers like Volkswagen and Mercedes that we are in touch in an IoT. So for example, when it comes to data ingestion, IoT is, and especially smart car, or how do you call it, car without the driver. Redis, for example, is an excellent fit because you need to ingest huge amount of data. Now, when you compare Redis to, for example, you mentioned Kafka. Redis open source has limitations because Redis is a single-threaded technology. But with the clustering mechanism, you can scale it much bigger than Kafka because you can run hundreds of processing powers, and as I mentioned, reach a scalability of millions of operations or per second of ingestion. So when it comes to the clustering, this is what I said about Kafka, for example. It depends on the use case, but Redis, one instance compared to Kafka may be better, but when you need huge amount of data with the clustering mechanism, you can reach huge amount of operations. Yes.
Do they have a geospatial indexing like MongoDB has, something like that for geodata?
Yeah, Redis does have that.
Yes. Okay.
Redis has geospatial indexes that you can.
And where we can put the Redis on cap, because I think it's more of write once.
That's a much longer conversation. I think we should have it over lunch, I guess, on cap theorem.
Okay.
Cap theorem. Or do you want to take that?
Mostly read.
Let's talk it over. It's a more complex question.
Finished? Okay, so I'll use very quickly. So, the screen.
It's about personalization and the needs for the modern applications. But I think that when it comes to personalization and social applications and gaming and banking, it's all the same. Is performance, is about the ability to provide time to market. It's about scalability, and this is exactly where Redis fits. I don't want to go into again more technical and more details, but I'm here during lunch. Any questions you've got, we'll answer. Sorry, you answer the question during lunch. But any more question you've got, I'm here during lunch. So feel free to ask me and to stop me. So, any more questions, guys? Okay, thank you very much.